So welcome back, students. Let's come back to the programming in C, computer programming C laboratory for VTU first and second sem students. So here, let's continue from where we left. So we have a input output function at the top, then the print function bottom, and the core algo is at the middle. Where Instant K video course is assuring you that all you need to remember is these 10 lines of code, but there is a caveat that there are hundreds of ways to solve a problem, okay? Hundreds or thousands of ways, and what we are suggesting is one of the most popularly used. You could see in the internet many top colleges use these algorithms, but there are your faculty or in your college they may be using something very specific. Okay, there's the style of writing or something else could be a little different. So you guys should be should understand and check what is the format, or if something specific is being used in your college or suggested by lecturer. So that's where it's going to vary. So our open challenge of 50 rupees is if you find any problem, technical issue, the coding algorithm bug or something what we have done, which if you follow and if you find your faculty or lecturer directing any marks, that's where we would. But know that there are few, each colleges, each lecturer has a preferred way to solve. There is some algorithm favorite to them. But what we are going to use is predominantly used by many of the colleges. So that's where our algorithm portion you should be aware of. Okay. So coming back quickly, so there is a header file which we need to define, and why. What is a header file? Why should we define? And for what function you are using here, what header file has to be used. So quickly, I just want to spend 2 minutes there and then go into the real problem solving. So the header file is a C standard library. C comes with some standard library which declares a number of header files. Each header file contains one or more functions, declaration, data types, and macros. So to make our life easy, whatever the most commonly used, the C standard library declares, puts them under one bracket or a small routine, say stdio, which contains a function declaration, data type definition, and macros. So you could include them and use it, right? For example, if you want to use math function sqrt. So where is the declaration of it? What should be the data parameter I should pass? Whether it takes one parameter, two parameter, just the compiler doesn't know. So only if you include the math.h, then the rest of the stuff would follow. So let me quickly run through the stdio.h, std. So stdio is something which is you will always every time use this is because it defines the core input output function. Okay. So the core input output function I just want you guys to demonstrate is, so the core input output function contains something like file access, like fopen, flush, fclose, and all those things. And the direct input, this is a file access, either you write to file or read to file. The next one is unformatted input output. So that means unformatted means it will give you a raw file stream. Okay. So you could get C, put C, gets puts, put char, get char, and all those stuff. Then there is a formatted input output. So scanf, printf, file scanf, string, all kind of prints, all these things are defined under stdio.h. Okay. So that's what it contains. And then the file position, you could seek, you could rewind, and error handling. Okay. So the stdio, if you want to use any of these functions, you should, I'm telling you again, you should include stdio. Okay. The stdio, that's what here is. You should include the stdio if you want to use this. So then there is a standard lib. Okay, the standard lib uh, uh, the standard library contains a lot of stuff. For example, the standard library uh, it provides macro type definition, function task like string handling, mathematical computation, input output processing, memory allocation, right? So in turn, standard lib include lot of stuff which you are uh, mainly use. So basically the numerical conversion function, memory allocation, say malloc, calloc, all those things free are used available in the standard library, and the process control. The string.h covers the string handling, string manipulation parameter. Okay, so the string manipulation basically contains stuff like if you want to do string copy, string n copy, cat. Okay, if you want to find the string length, string compare. String compare is one of the most popular one which we would use in this lab as well. So then all the string, anything to everything with a string and a memset. Memset is another important, may not be, you won't be using here, but when you go to higher semester, more complex C program, you have to use memset, memcopy, memmove kind of stuff. So all this, any of this, if you are using, you have to use the string.h. Then there is a math. So anything if you are doing math, whether you want ABS, floating point ABS, anything if you are using, you should, for example, apps, okay, the floating point ABS, then the reminder, max, min, logarithmic, log of 2, log 10, square root, anything sine, cosine, tan, anything of mathematical if you want to use, there is already a library called math.h and you better include that. Okay. So coming back here, so you should know based on what input you are doing, what header file to choose. Okay. So 99% I would say all you need is stdio. Okay. So all you need is stdio. This is 100% of the time. If you are using any string, okay, string compare, string copy, you would need this. And if you are using square root or apps or something else, you would need this, right? That's it. So you don't need more than this. So you remember what header file to use, and sometime it will say when you are using square, sqrt, the function declaration is not present. Then, oh, okay, it needs a math.h. Okay, that's how you are going to include. And these two braces tells that is a C standard library. Go and search there. Okay, there is also we use semicolon. That is for some header file which is inside this local path. Okay, it will search in the local path. So this is the all of header file business. Okay, so what all C data types? Okay. So again, you should know for each of your what kind of data type you should know. You should be very sorry. So what type? So the data types are for what purpose you need what. Okay, that is something you should clearly know. There are some, I mean, I'm not going to go through much because you would have already gone through in your C programming in C part where you would have different data types. One is char, short, int, long, float, and double. But this is the most common, and you should do this first. First program you should ever write on any processor or anything is find out the size, because this is most common interview question. What they would ask is, okay, what is the size of char? What is the size of short and int? Okay, so it's very processor to processor. So you should clearly know. I mean, you should run on that processor to get. Okay, in most processor, in my processor with the Turbo C what I am running, the char is a 1. 1 byte. Okay. Short, the size of short is 2. Okay. So easy, int. Okay. So int is also 2. The long is a double. So it's a U32, 32 bit, whereas int and short are 16 bits. Okay. And the float is a floating point, which it takes 4 bytes, and the double is double of that. It's a another floating point representation. So what you need is what you use. Okay, is exactly based on your purpose. Okay, so if you are based on your purpose, you should use that. So you should be very careful with what you are going to use it. So let me quickly run through the whole thing. So I have a C program in which I have defined stdio because I am using printf. Okay, and I am using getch just to see the output console. So the size of is a C standard library which gives the size of anything. You can structure or I'm using the standard one, but you could also get the size of any structure. So let me compile and run. So this is what I am getting. Short char is 1 byte. The short is 2. Int is 2, long is 4, float is 4, and double is 8. So this is the most Viva question or interview question anywhere. They will ask, okay, you run on this compiler, right? So you are defining int. What is the size of it? How long it will take, right? Whenever you say how long it will take, you better know what is the size of each of these on this processor you are running. Okay, so this is what we are coming to. Okay, the next one is the user input output routines. So I just want to cover once all this scanf printf business to you, make you understand once for all, and so that let's concentrate the core algorithm in our discussion. Okay, so for example, if you are I have a simple program where I have defined a float, which is a temperature, temp, int as a date, and character as a string. Okay, so if you want to copy any string, your name, some date, so you should define, it's a consecutive characters. Okay, so ASCII characters. So if you want your name as Abhijit, A, B, so each of this, so you should define sufficiently long array so that you save the whole thing. Okay, so that's why I'm assuming that no name is more than 20 characters. Okay, so if it is today's date is going to be an integer, so that's why I'm using a %d. Okay, so the first to read anything, first you have to in printf tell what you want. You ask user to enter, but that has to be very precise. Enter today's date. Okay, just say date. So you have to be very precise. If you are asking for a sorted number, enter total count of number max 50, because if you have used an array of 50, enter the string month, you can say max 20 character in the braces. Okay, so here in printf you ask what you want, and scanf is the one which reads from the user interface. It takes an address, so you have to carefully give. If you want a string, it's percentages. Then today's max temperature, you are going to record temperature for the day, and okay, the temperature intentionally, I want to show you something. The temperature has to be a float. So what will happen if you make it %d? I'll show each of this. So once you do, you print it. Again, print has to be the same. Okay, if it is date is a integer, %d, string, %s, temp, %f. If you do any gocha of this side and that side, compiler will kick you. Really, it will give you nasty results. That's what I want to show you now. Okay, let me quickly go to my program. So whatever function I have told, I have defined part of the C code. So what I am defining is temp as a float, date as int, char as string. Okay, enters today's date, which is a date I am taking, which is int. So I should use %d. Current month is a string, so it's a %s, and the current date, if you has to be %f. Okay, so let me compile this and run. Okay, today's date is 10th, month is January, and today's temperature is 26.7. Okay, so it is printing today's date as 10, the max temp Jan, and the temperature is 26.7. Okay, there is some floating point error, right? This is what it is. So you should be very, very careful. For example, for the same temperature, what if I use %d, okay, by mistake? Let me see if the compiler crips. No, compiler doesn't care. It's your hell. Do whatever you want. So let me try to run. Today's date is 10th, month is Jan, temperature is 26.7. So what output you are getting? The temperature is showing all garbage. Okay, so the garbage is basically because it's a temp is a float, and you are trying to define read it as a integer. Okay, so some compiler can give you some compiler can give you garbage as what you have seen, but you won't get the expected for sure. So what I have shown you may see as something different, but at last what is not we want is not you are going to get. So a programmer, you should know by heart that if it is an int, %d, if it is a string, %s, if it is a float, %f. Okay, so I read as a float. Okay, but when I am printing, let me change to this to d. Okay, temperature I would run. So every time you should compile, because or else the last whatever is, so it's going to be 10 Jan 26.7. See here, the 10 Jan came, but the temperature is showing junk, right? So you may you may have written your algorithm correctly, but just because of this stupid scanf, printfs, you may get a wrong values. So you may be breaking your head what is happening. So you should be very, very careful with this scanf and printf. Okay, so this is like if you are using a Nokia charger with a old round type, you should connect a charger mobile of round type, you should connect a right one. If you are using a micro USB, you should use a micro USB charger. If you want a mini USB or a bigger one, you should use that kind of a charger. So that's it. You should be as sanctorum. You have to follow like textbook. Whatever is needed, you should follow it. Okay. So just because everything is else, I printed in %d and you are getting wrong. So let me try to make date as f. Okay. Let me try to print date as f. But the worst thing is the compiler is not cribbing. Okay. Many times if you have enabled a different compiler option, it will tell you Ubuntu, or if you use GCC, it may tell you there could be something wrong. But mostly it won't tell you anything. Okay, it won't tell you anything. So here I said percentage date I am printing as %f. So let me see. 10 Jan 26.7. See, the date is showing something totally garbage because I'm using float. Okay. So you should be very careful with the whatever you are using. Okay. So This is what the printf, you should be careful in scanf, whatever it is, you should use that, and scanf take the address. So that's why we are sending and ampersand of the variable, so that it saves the content in this variable. So we should put for this scanf function, we should send the address so that it can modify. The scanf is going to modify the temp to and saving, returning back with a value saved in it. That's why we are passing the scanf with a address. If you pass it here, it can't modify. You would have understood by the C programming in C. If you pass a variable without the address, it can only use it. It cannot modify and return you back. As we want, we have to send an address to scanf, but we are not sending and to printf, because printf does not need to modify my temp. Printf, you need to use it and print it. So the variable is sufficient. It don't need an address, but the scanf need it. Okay, so you should be very careful. I'm not using the mouse. I'm using this Alt C, Alt F9 and Alt C to compile. That's why you see I'm not moving the cursor to the run. Okay, so 10 Jan 26.7. Okay, now you are getting a proper result because I'm using all the proper stuff. Okay, so you should be very, very careful with the what different float, int and char you are using. You should use with a proper %d, %d. If it is this, you have to change it to what is the right way is. What you should change is, should make it %f. Okay, just to highlight, I had not done it. So you should. So this is your typical print and stuff. So let me quickly go to the next one, which is the tips and tricks. So always use clear screen, CLR, SCR, to flush, clear the output console, or else previous run will keep coming. You don't know what is current, what is old. Clear will just flush everything. Okay, and you can use getch to make the output console visible to you and to the faculty to see whether the output has come. And always check for, it's highly recommended to check for the user input. Okay, if somebody passes n number of an array, and what if he passes 0? Okay? It's better to check, but intentionally to keep our code small, so that if it is too long, student would get scared. So keep our line, all our code is less than 15 lines, period. Okay, just to keep this thing, we have not validating all the thing, but I highly recommend you. Okay, so compile and run stage by stage. So never ever, I highly recommend, write 10 lines of code, run it, compile it, see the results, go and think. So typically after you take the user input and say print what all user has given, and so see if user has given is correct. So that's where one stop. Okay, there's pit stop 1. After that, if input to a for or while loop, so any while loop or for loop, you should be very careful. It should go inside with a proper initialized stuff. Like as we get into the home, we leave our slipper, we keep everything, we keep our helmet in the front lob or veranda, and then enter our home, right? Same way, any for or while, you should be as careful as that, whether the input sum is initialized to 0, where sum is getting added up inside this while loop, right? So that's something you should be careful. You should add it. Then inside the loop, while loop, you can print what is the I value. I should be incrementing from 0 to n, and is sum getting added up. Sum is equal to sum plus some x. Is that is happening. So this is a debug. You can print it, see if it is working, then remove it or comment it. And once everything is done, test. If you're calling some subroutine, you should say factorial or something. So you should individually write that subroutine and pass 3 and you should get a 3 factorial, pass 5 factorial. So individually you should call it and test it and have sufficient event printf to make sure. And then once everything is done, you do a final output. So you run, if you given a problem, you will just stop at input print, see if compiled okay, running is okay. Then if there is any input to the while, you will just stop there, write it. Inside you write your for loop, while condition, check print something there, printf, and see if it is working correctly. Then once it is run, then you run the whole, if there is subroutine, you will check, then write the final. So you would compile 10 lines here, 10 lines here, another 10 lines, 5 lines, and nothing. So if you do this, you won't have to struggle, go through a lot of stuff. Okay, this is the recommended step, and use enough printf. As I said, whatever input you would just check loop condition. So put one printf inside your for loop to check all these boundary condition. If there is an intermediate variable, you will use and check that, and the final output. So these things, whatever you don't want, you can remove it before showing to the faculty. Okay, and always make sure you print a very beautiful, like if you are sending some card to friend or something, right? You make it very beautiful, neat. So your final output should be as beautiful as that. You should just, people seeing the output should just love it, right? It's like a poem. It's like you should make it very beautiful. So always, if you are printing something, you can print top and bottom and say 2000 some out percentage D is not a palindrome or is a palindrome. So when the faculty, your examiner sees this, you just say, okay man, this guy has done a very beautiful job. Okay, even if you attend an interview later, that's how you should be. So people just love if your presentation is good, and the marks is given to the presentation, right? You would have seen there is a different cooking competition and master chef and all. There, more than cooking, they look the presentation, how they keep the whole thing and how they present is that really matters. So same is here. So just because I don't want to add a lot of lines of code and scare student, I'm not doing it, but I highly encourage you to do it. So let me quickly go through the flowchart part of it. So you may be asked to write flowchart, so you should know the flowchart graphical diagramical representation of the algorithm. So the basic flowchart has parts like a oval. Okay, oval is used for start and the end. So you will have only one at the beginning and one at the end. Is you would say start and end here, and the parallelogram is for input. So or output. So if you have any scanf comes here, printf comes here, nothing else. So always input and output, scanf, printf, wherever you are writing, you will replace with this and say print. A rectangle is for a statement and expression. If you are copying x is equal to y by 2, you are just assignment. It's a statement. It's an expression that comes as a rectangle. Okay, that comes as a rectangle. The third one is rhombus is for the addition. Addition is if, mainly if this A is greater than B. Okay? Anything comes under this if condition. And hexagonal is for looping. It's for and while. That's it. So it's for and while. This is for if. This is for x is equal to y. Some just assignment. Circle is a connector. If you are running the whole thing, if you can't fit it in a page, if you have to go, you will write EA here and go back, and there you define EA and start there. Okay, it's a connector. Double-ended rectangle is for function. If you are calling square root or anything else, you should do that. So here is a typical example of finding the roots of a equation in which you can have, if the delta is b square minus 4ac, if the delta is 0, then the roots are going to be this. If delta is greater, roots are going to be the real, and if delta is less, roots are going to be the imaginary with this. So the flow chart is, it starts with start. Start is an oval, okay, oval or like this. Then any printf and scanf, you know, it's in the rectangle, it's in this form, parallelogram. Okay, so it's going to be in this. So you read A, B, C, then immediately if you want to check if A or B or C is 0. So there is a if condition, so you have a rhombus. So once it is done, you are going to initialize D with B into B minus 4AC. So it's an initialization, this is an expression. So it's a rectangle. So once again that, all you have is just a 2 if condition. If D is greater than 0, it comes to a true part where you are going to define the two roots R1 and R2 or X1 and S2 as this variable. If it is false, then you will check if D is less than 0, then if it is true, you come here, else you come here, right? So again, these three are initializations, that's why it's a rectangle. Then you will just print the roots. So the root you are going to print, any print is, or scanf is a parallelogram, that's what it is. Then the whole control flow and it's a stop. So wherever relevant we have defined it, but seeing the algorithm, seeing the pseudocode, you should be able to write your own flow diagram or the if the instructor insists. Okay, so be very careful. It's very simple. It's like a fifth standard thing. If you'll have one start, one end. Okay, both are ovals. Any scanf, printf are going to be a parallelogram. If is a rhombus, then a statement are just a rectangle. That's it, right? So all you have is number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If there is a function, you will use it, or else it's going to be 6. Any representation of a flow chart is going to be just this, period. Okay, so just remember this and keep following. Okay, thank you.